You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, David.
Good to be back, Jim.
A lot of hanging heads about the price of gold right now. People are discouraged, and we have a lot of questions about that. One of them being, what are the implications of lower gold prices? Do we need gold to go up to encourage more exploration?
I think the implications of the current gold price, the uncertainty surrounding it, and the 4-year unremitting cyclical bear market are really causing serious systemic damage to the idea of finding and producing substantially more gold in the years ahead. And if you look at, for example, the first 10 years of the bull market, starting around 2000, 2002, something like that, all of that march from gold at under $300 up to $1,900, and all the exploration work that went on, and how many major discoveries were actually made. Arguably one or two medium-sized ones, and potentially one major one, which was nationalized by the country where it was found in and is not in any ways near moving toward production. So if all of that activity and the price of gold moving up from $300 to $1,900 couldn't bring about major new gold sources, I wonder what it's going to be like with all the impediments that we're looking like now in terms of future discovery and then leading long-term to more production of gold.
What would happen if somebody tomorrow discovered a major gold source? Would that perk up the industry?
Well, it would perk up the share price of that company if it was legitimate, but the reality is that gold deposit, with everything going well, wouldn't go into production for 10 years most likely, and maybe 15. So it's just everything is so problematic. And the thing is with the companies, you know, a gold mine is a wasting asset because when you're producing gold from it, it's a finite resource in that project, and at some point you're going to run out and have to close it down and refurbish the environment. And so the majors need to find new projects, which are usually supplied by the feeder streams of these little exploration companies, of which Canada historically has put in 60 or 70% of the global money that goes into exploration for gold, silver, and other projects like that. And these companies are just drying up and blowing away because of this severe intermediate-term bear market we've been seeing. And they don't have enough money to keep the lights on, most of them, let alone to go drill some holes and see what they can find. So I just think that it's going to be very difficult to replenish the coffers, the supply streams of the majors, and they're going to bid up what companies that are still out there that have projects that are close to production. When things really turn around and gold gets stronger on a more intermediate-term basis, I think you're going to see the companies that do have the goods are going to do very well in terms of their share price. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some of them get taken out instead of at 35%, which seems to be what often happens. And I saw this happen several times over the last 10 years where a gold or silver company project was acquired by another company. And usually the premium was about 35-40%. It wouldn't surprise me to see 80, 100, 150% in some cases, especially based upon the prices we're seeing now when some of these takeouts get underway, and they will happen.
We were always told that the price of production for gold, the break-even, is $1,200. We're well below that now.
Yeah, the all-in sustained costs are at least that, and so most companies are producing at a loss. And I think what's kind of fascinating to me, you know, all the gloom and doom out there, and hardly any of the financial writers are positive on the metals. I've really never seen it this gloomy. I mean, it's even worse now, I think, than it was before the bull market started. But I'll tell you, our listeners have a few companies that really have the gold, so to speak, and it's in the ground, and it's in a reasonably safe area for production, and it's going to be worthwhile to try to get it out of the ground. I think they're going to be pretty startled over the next few years at the prices that some of these companies that have those projects end up being bought out for. And so they can do well not just because whether or not gold is going up at a certain level, but whether or not a major like Barrick or Newmont or something like this, someone like this or Goldcorp decides to buy that project, and that they'll probably see run up going into that, maybe 300 or 400%, and then maybe another 80% overnight when they finally clinch the deal.
At the time of the interview here, the Canadian dollar trading at below 88 cents American. Could a lower Canadian dollar encourage foreign investors to explore here?
It's possible. They'll still want to do it in safe districts for sure. And Canada's mining laws have become more complicated by real world events that we've talked about here, a couple tailings ponds breaks and things like that, and expanded capabilities legally on the part of First Nations to challenge projects and to have buy-in and things like that. So it's just becoming more complicated, more problematic, more expensive. And even in Canada, which has been BC especially, been a fairly mine-friendly locale over the years, it just throws a few more questions up there, so it adds more complexity to the task of these CEOs making decisions about whether or not to even spend money looking for something, let alone buy a project that's out there, because something might keep it from ever going into production.
And the Poly tailing pond blowout, that's discouraging people, I would think.
Right, that's just one more example, and just a few weeks after that, there was a major spill in Mexico. So these things happen from time to time, and that they're part of a parcel of doing the mining business, and things are getting safer, but it only takes one or two high-profile events like this to really cast a pall over the entire process. It's too bad, but it is what it is.
The good news about the Poly tailing mine disaster is that restoration work is well underway. No one lost their life. No major property damage was caused to private property. No homes were hit. And a lot of people are saying the work they're doing right now has been so good, it's now even getting hard to tell that there was a disaster there. So we do have remedies, it seems.
Yeah, I hope that's the case, and I wish them the best, not only the producers so that they can stay in business, but and hopefully they'll be a lot sharper about what they've done in the future than they have in the past, but also for the people in the area. And it could turn out to be a showcase restoration project. I'm not predicting that, but it could be, and if it is, that would be something where people could restore their faith in the viability of the mining process, because we do need it. Like David Morgan says, everything we use, and I mean everything in our daily lives, is either grown or mined, and that's just what it is,
What's going on with gold behind the bamboo curtain? We'll check into that with David Smith right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking to David Smith, senior analyst for the Morgan Report. China perhaps is in talks with Barrick Gold to become a partner in their disaster-ridden Pascua Lama mining development on the Argentinian-Chilean border. Barrick said it would cost $3 billion to bring this thing online. It's now $8.5 billion, and they're not doing a thing. Is there any reality to China helping out there?
I think there's a lot of reality from China's viewpoint. That's one of the more fascinating projects that I've ever kind of taken a look at. I was just looking today at some of the pictures of the resource identification work that they've done there. That, it looks like an open pit mine in one part, and they haven't even started drilling yet in terms of production, if they ever do. But it's a massive project. And the thing is, here's what I think, and I'm on this first part, I can pretty much substantiate it because it's out there in the news. We're talking this morning about China and Barrick having further talks about Pascua Lama. Down the line here, when I say a couple other things, these are simply my opinion, and I can't quantify them, and neither can anybody else. But here's what I think. I think China has got what I would call, in warfare, they call it full spectrum warfare, where all the different aspects of what you can do are brought to bear on a specific objective, whether it's an enemy, encampment, or taking over the country, or destroying their fleet, or whatever. And I think China is employing full spectrum warfare in the war on gold, or the war for gold for them. And they're acquiring an awful lot of gold that we can see on the radar screen coming in through Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Beijing. And, for example, they quantified last year, some of their own sources said that they brought in 2,200 tons of gold last year, which is a few hundred tons less than the world production. And so we know about that. We know a certain amount about what they produce in country, but beyond that, what we don't know are some of these other things, such as these gold and silver projects, which the Chinese are either buying outright, which they're doing in several countries in South America, or going into partnership. We can see here with Barrick Gold. And the thing is, with Pascua-Lama as an example, I believe the Chinese would be quite content to wait 25 years or 30 years to even have that thing producing if they had to, because they know that what's there, and they know that at some point there's going to be a breakthrough and they're going to be able to produce. And if they hang on long enough, they may own the whole darn thing if Barrick goes under or decides to sell it out. So for them to worry about spending a few extra $1 billion, which is a lot of money to most real-world companies, but when you have 2 or 3 trillion in U.S. reserve dollars that they've gotten through the loans that we've taken out through them, what's a few $1 billion on a project that would over time return tens of billions of dollars? And so I think that's going on much more broadly than people realize. I think they're acquiring projects all over the world, and they're not worried about whether they will come online in 5 or 10 years like we're talking about here. If it comes online in 30 or 40 or 50, they're just fine with that. And so, in addition, I also think, and I can't substantiate this at all, but to me it makes perfect sense. I think that there's an awful lot of gold buying going on by the Chinese that show up with suitcases full of money and buy gold from artisanal miners, basically illegal miners that are mining projects that they found that nobody else knows about, little projects, or going in on known projects and stealing the gold. In South Africa, that's estimated in some projects 20% of the gold mined is mined by illegals. And I think the Chinese are quite willing to go in and buy this gold, whether it's Colombia or parts of Central Africa or other places in South America. And I think that's all part of that tributary system of feeding gold into China. And I think, truth be known, the amount of gold that they either have or will have in the coming years is just going to be massive. And that doesn't even count all the gold projects of gold in the ground that they're buying. So I could foresee something happening down the line within the next 10, 15, 20 years, which is a long time for most of us. But the point being, I think you could see a situation where the Chinese controlled a very large, if not a majority, a very large amount of the viable gold projects in the world that they either had controlling interest in or owned outright. And that would be a fiat accompli of the tallest order in terms of gold.
So all you people who are interested in buying gold, this is probably the right time to do it if China's going to hoard all of it.
It is, and it's got to be something you have to really take the long view, and people get tired of hearing that, and I don't blame them because we've all been shell-shocked by what's going on. But the point is, it just may be that buying some of these companies now that are selling for pennies on the dollar and deciding, well, if they make money for me over the next few years while I'm an investor, then that, I hope so. But if not, doggone it, I'm going to give them to my kids. And it just may be that some of these companies, that are selling for 50 cents now or 10 cents or $1.10, it may be in 20 years that they're selling for $100.
David, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
You bet, Jim. It's been really enjoyable speaking with you today.
My guest has been David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.